Welcome back, guys, to another video. In this video, I kind of want to share with you more of a personal account and honest truth as to why I decided to leave the East Coast, come to the West Coast, to Las Vegas, Nevada. And if you don't even want to bother watching the rest of the video, the honest truth is I'm just a hardcore gambler and I love to party 24/7. Not, I wish, but that is simply not true. If you want to know the real reason, sit back, enjoy, and let's kind of get into it. So before we start the story, and just to kind of set the context, I am always an East Coast guy. I have always been born and raised in the US on the East Coast, whether it's living in New York City, Westchester, or Massachusetts. East Coast is my blood. I also had a chance to live in DC after college. I also had a chance to also live outside the US in the UK for 7-8 years, going to university and also grad school. And so living somewhere new as a concept has not been new to me. And as a matter of fact, it's something that I really embrace. For something that a lot of people will find uncomfortable, I love it because some of my biggest growth as a person, my best experiences happen from new experiences where you just can't go backwards. You just have to make it happen. You have to develop the inner confidence. You can't run back home whenever you want to, call mom and dad. And this is particularly a lot more difficult living in a different country. You just have to kind of make the best of it and go with the flow and take a step forward and go out there, meet people, make friends, make new experiences. And I love that. And so the thought of living somewhere else on the East Coast was not foreign to me. It wasn't scary to me. And something I always thought about, you know what, maybe we should do it. And as I'm getting older, I've always been intrigued and fascinated by the idea of going to the West Coast, right? Like California and Pacific Northwest and Arizona. I've heard a lot of great things about these states, and the weather's supposed to be better. It's warmer, ocean, all that good stuff. And I'm like, you know what, maybe it might make sense. So before we kind of get into the list, the basic context was 2 years ago, me and my wife were kind of already ready and open more than ever to move. In fact, we were on the market to buy a home, and we decided to, against a better judgment, buy a house here in Vegas, completely sight unseen. And it was a new build, meaning it didn't even exist. There was still a pile of dirt at that time, and it was scary. It was borderline reckless. But the only reason why we did it is we had family here in Vegas. I was able to kind of check in on the site every week or two to make sure we're not getting scammed and it's actual house being built. But so far, we are able to kind of live through that experience, knock on wood, and here we are. We moved to Vegas about 2 years ago. We learned a lot about the city, had a lot of good times, and I figured, I'd make a video about it, more of a personal video where I can kind of share with you some of our favorite reasons why we love the city and a couple reasons why we don't love it so much, right? So to kind of start with the pros, number one, Vegas is a first-class entertainment destination. It is doing its best to really shed its reputation of being Sin City to more of an entertainment city, an entertainment destination, known not just for its casinos and the strip, but also for shopping, retail, fine dining, and sports. Even just in the short 2 years that we're here, we see more sports arenas, more entertainment venues, more sports teams coming into the city, really kind of helping the city just go beyond of what it was originally known for or has a reputation of for a lot of people out there. And so for someone who lived in the city, whatever I wanted to do, whether it's going out, eating good food, seeing a sports game, whatever I want to do, there was probably an option here for that, which makes it a great city to live in and of course to visit as well. So people come here for a day, a weekend, a whole week, even longer. And most of our first year was really kind of going to the strip and really kind of looking at all the nooks and crannies and all these different resorts and casinos, getting a feel for it and just soaking it all up. Now that kind of brings me to my second point. Vegas is a city like any city in the world. Aside from the Times Square, the strip, it has everything, right? So whether you want your dry cleaners or restaurants or the DMV or parks, Vegas has it. And for someone who's now kind of considered a local here, it's now coming into our second year. We rarely go to the strip. And so the beautiful thing is, even if the strip didn't exist, everything we want to do is available outside the strip, right? Whether it's restaurants or shopping and stuff like that, just like any other city out there, which makes it super convenient. And we don't always have to kind of go into highly congested tourist traffic areas to have a good time. And so I think this is something I want to touch upon a little bit more because people who typically know Vegas interact with it as more of hey, just a quick go in, go hard for a weekend, come out type of thing, bachelorette parties type of thing. But hey, it's a town, it's a city, like with anything else, and you can do whatever else you want with it on top of what it's available in Vegas. So I think for that, it's pretty convenient and enjoyable. And I think that's the first thing I want to cover. Now, the second thing that I love about Vegas is it has a fantastic airport. Vegas is not just a major domestic destination, it's also a global destination. So because of that, when you come into Vegas, number one, you always have friends and family coming into town. So it's just a great way to network or, re-engage old colleagues or old friends who come into town for various reasons. It's a really big town also for conferences. So a lot of people are just always coming through. And it's just a great way to create new relationships, make new relationships, or also just catch up on old ones, right? But if you're someone who loves to travel, because it's a tier 1 global airport, you actually can go to just 4 corners of the world from here. If it's not direct, definitely a connecting flight. But a lot of the major airlines fly through here. And whether it's Asia or Europe, anywhere else, you can get get to it from Vegas, which makes it super convenient. So if you're trying to come to Vegas, it's easy to get to. If you're leaving to somewhere from Vegas, it has a lot of connections to get to really anywhere you want to go. The next reason that we really enjoy Vegas, it's close distances to just parks and recreational activities. So Vegas is a city within a valley here in Vegas. And because of it, when you kind of fly over or when you look at it at a map, it's actually not that big. And so the beautiful thing about it is everything is kind of within proximity of everything else. We kind of joke here in town that nothing's really 20 minutes more car drive than anything else. You can literally go from the west side of town to the east in just 20 minutes or under with no traffic, south to north in 20 minutes. You can, it's easy to go from west side to east side, back to west side, back to east side in all one day, where in other cities like New York or Tokyo or London, that would just literally be impossible, right? So I think one of the biggest reasons that we've just come to enjoy it on a day-to-day is just like everything's super close. 20 minutes feels far now in terms of like being in the car. And most of the things that we want is usually typically between a 5 to 15 minutes away from our house, which is pretty awesome. And that includes literally every convenience, grocery stores, movie theaters, you name it, is super close. Now, I touched upon this a little bit. The traffic situation here is great. It certainly has gotten worse a little bit more because more people are moving to Vegas. So there's a lot more construction. But being a relatively small city, even though it's been kind of going through its boom in population, traffic is awesome. And this is from a perspective from someone who lived in DC, from New York to Boston to London. Like, you can just go anywhere. And especially if you go off peak times during the middle of the week or middle of the weekday, you can, again, drive around all four corners of Vegas multiple times in a single day if you wanted to. And for me, that's something small is huge. Just to kind of do small little errands, or if I have to go and get something and come back, just getting around is so easy because like the traffic is just not there, right? And for that reason, it's just a blessing to live in a city with minimal traffic instead of having to waste so much time being stuck wherever you go, moving super slow. Now, before I forget, another reasons why I love the city is, in addition to being like a really big, entertainment destination, because of that and the rate that Vegas is expanding with population and growth and demand, like they're always just building a lot of new things. There's always new shopping centers, new Costco, new strip malls, new attractions, new entertainment venues that are constantly being built. So even if you're here for just like a couple months or half a year, you can't get enough, and you can't even like really stay cutting edge of all the new things that are happening with development wise in the city. There's always something new happening. And for that, like if you're spontaneous, you're like, hey, I want to do something, like there's so much to do. It just compounds really, really quickly. So even though you're living in a small like valley city, it's very difficult to kind of be bored. If you look hard enough, you're going to find something really fun to do. Real quick, if you ever thought about starting your own recruitment agency, or you're a recruiter struggling to land clients, you'll want to check out our coaching and implementation program. Inside, I give you the exact scripts, the outreach templates, and acquisition systems I used to hit over $500,000 my first year, scale to over $100,000 months, and do over $5 million in placements on my own desk. Our students are already hitting $30,000, $50,000, even $80,000 per month or more, many of them doing it part-time. So if you want to learn the same playbook, the link's below. It's exactly what I use. Now back to the video. Next thing I want to talk about is weather. Before I talk about obviously the summer, which is one of the major cons, Vegas in a desert, in a valley, is relatively dry and moderate year round aside from the summer. And I think for people who are looking for dry weather, warmer weather, it's a fantastic destination to just come if you're sick and tired of the ice and snow and the freaking cyclones and hurricanes that are happening. Like Vegas as a city has pretty moderate weather patterns and also just like natural disasters. Sometimes you get the forest fires from California coming over, but in terms of like tornadoes or earthquakes, like it's pretty safe in terms of fires, really nothing to burn. We're in a desert. So for that, it's awesome. And I think that's why it's always been very attractive to be a retiree town, because it's always just pretty temperate and mild throughout the year. In my opinion, I think September, end of summer to probably like the beginning of or mid to late spring is like the perfect time. I think if I were to really choose the perfect time, I think from September to probably January, February is the perfect time. Winter, while it's the worst in other places, is the best here. And I love the fall. You're probably looking at maybe more like 70 to 90 degrees, sunny, blue sky every day. It's just absolutely fantastic. And another thing you can kind of take for granted in Vegas is just sunny days. Like having over 300 sunny days in a year, it's weird when you have a rainy day or when you have a lot of clouds in the sky. So if you're someone who's living in London or lives in the Pacific Northwest, you're like, I need more sun, Vegas is classic for that. Another thing that a lot of people don't know is an area called Mount Charleston. It's about 40 minutes away from the center of Vegas, where if you drive out there, you really feel like you're in the Pacific Northwest or Colorado. You got mountains, you got trees, and you got water. And it's also 30 degrees cooler there than in the center valley of Vegas. And that's actually where a lot of the locals like us go to peak summer, where if it's like 100 degrees or 9 degrees in the middle of Vegas, it's like 70 degrees, maybe even less in parts of Mount Charleston, which is amazing. It feels like you're like in an alpine village in Colorado with all these luscious green trees everywhere. You can also hike to waterfalls. Like it's just fantastic. And in the wintertime, it actually has a ski resort. And so if you really wanted to, you come here in December, January, February, you can actually ski be just 30-40 minutes away from Las Vegas in the wintertime. Most people don't even know that. And when I first kind of discovered that, it was mind-blowing. Next thing I want to talk about is time zone. So for me, I've always been used to working East Coast time in US. Living in the West Coast but working East Coast hours is the ultimate time freedom. Yes, that means I have to wake up super early. So 9 o'clock Eastern is usually 6 a.m. Pacific, but 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. Eastern is more like 2 p.m., 3 p.m. So I still wake up early, which is fine. I've always done that, but my workday can end at 2 or 3 p.m., which means I literally have the whole rest of the day to do whatever I want. So if you're a workaholic, that's kind of a downside because you can have technically 2 work days packed in one. But if you're someone who intentionally stays on top of your time management, I think it's amazing because like you finish work and it's like 2 or 3 at the latest, and then you have the whole day to do what you want. You can take a road trip, you can go hiking, you can go swimming, and it just feels like the days are just so long. And I think that's amazing because on the East Coast, you wake up, you can still have some time before work, but after work, typically fall or winter, it gets so dark. Here in Vegas, when I finish work and I look out the window, you still see that sun beaming with full intensity with blue skies. Like it's amazing. Lastly, like again, talking about the weather, a lot of people come to Vegas because of health. The dry, moderate climate tends to be really good for people who just are really have a tough time with like humidity or, you know, temperatures that are like really, really cold. So I think really dry, moderate year round really helps a lot of people. So if you're kind of battling any health things, or if you know friends or your parents wanting to look for a warmer climate, I would highly recommend Vegas. Last but not least, it wasn't the primary reason, but obviously having no personal income tax here, amazing, amazing, amazing secondary cherry on top type of thing. And this is from someone who lived in Boston, New York City, and DC, some of the highest, most expensive cities that you can live in this country. And so to go from that to now living in Vegas, where I have zero personal income tax, like it's literally amazing. I mean, my first year in business in New York, I remember having to pay over $100,000 in taxes alone, and I just literally wanted to cry. And since then, for the next like 10 years, I always got that email from my accountant saying, hey, you owe X amount. And I just never got that email for Vegas. And to me, I'm like, wait a second, did you forget to send it? Is this really the case? Am I delusional? Am I hallucinating? But yeah, it was reality. And like that to me, I'm like, that's amazing. So hey, if you're going to work hard and you're going to work hard to make a living, it's great to kind of, you know, keep more of that in your pocket. Now, aside from the pros, let's quickly talk about the cons, even though overall just very enjoyable and positive here in Vegas. Now, number one, obviously the summertime. When we moved here, we completely underestimated how hot it actually got in the summertime, provided it is dry heat. It's not humid heat, but you know, in the first year, it was also an anomaly year, unexpectedly hot. I think some of the days got to like 126 degrees. It literally felt like my eyeballs and skin was melting as soon as I left the house, right? Again, I think 126 degrees plus humid is worse, and it's also extremely dangerous. But being dry, obviously it's gonna feel not as hot as like the numbers that you see, but my goodness, it's hot. And I will say, being in Vegas for a couple years, I'm now like, when I see like 90 degrees, I'm like, oh, it's super cold. It's like, wow, fall or springtime's here, where 90 degrees in New York or Boston is like crazy hot summer weather. Now, like it's 80, 90s a walk in the park for me, and hundreds, I'm like, okay, it's getting toasty. But man, anything above 110, 120, it gets pretty hot. The one thing you do have to be careful is like walking around bare feet outside. You don't want to do that. You can easily burn your feet. Or obviously getting into your car, you know, if you're wearing, you know, short pants or something and your skin touches the leather or whatever, it can burn. Same thing with the steering wheel. So you want to be very careful with that. The second thing I want to talk about is walkability. I think this is something that I thought wouldn't really affect me until the second year. So for me, all I've known my whole life is living in apartments or living in more urban environments where I can just leave home. And even if I had a car, I can just leave home, still jump on a bike, you know, one of those scooters, or call it Uber to like anything I wanted. Or like in DC or New York, you can just leave and you can do whatever you want without a car. And to me, I love that. In Vegas, you absolutely need a car. And even where we live, which is on the west side of Vegas, I could walk, but there's not really much to walk around. I think they're planning on kind of creating a new park and a retail center close to our house. But aside from that, there's like really nothing to do. And like you're forced to kind of get in the car and drive somewhere. And either you have to go to the strip or maybe something more like a downtown strip mall on the west side of Summerlin. That's where they have shops. But aside from that, like you have to kind of get in the car everywhere. And as much as I love driving, I also love just like getting on a bike and walking and spending the whole day without cars. And so I didn't think that would affect me. But now knowing, like having a better idea like what I want and my lifestyle, I kind of decided that I missed that a little bit. Now, the next thing is like pricey. Even though it's in a valley kind of desert town, Vegas has a pretty decent cost of living. Like it's pretty comparable to some of the more expensive cities and states in the country. And it's also been increasing over the years as well. So like even coming from New York or DC, I haven't really felt like a significant savings day to day as I would have hoped, right? In fact, the home prices are increasing pretty quickly. And as a result, like a lot of the other usual things, the basic stuff throughout the day, throughout the week that we do grocery shopping, have been pretty stable, or maybe I've experienced maybe a slight uptick. So I would say that's a huge con there. Even though like you can get apartments, you can rent out homes homes pretty affordably. But like last time I checked out prices, they were almost on par to like, other more established cities like DC and Boston, which was surprising. And so I don't know if that's going to change, but yeah, we were pretty surprised that even though like we're kind of enjoying the benefits of no taxes, yeah, like we were like, wow, the groceries are, not as cheap as we hoped for. So definitely kind of factor that in mind when visiting and coming to Vegas. Next thing is, for someone who lived on the East Coast, I love basements. I love backyards. That's just not a thing unless you get like a gigantic house or a new build and you just luck out with a corner lot or something. But usually if you buy a new build here in Vegas, a lot of the backyards come unfinished, which is great if that's what you want. So you can kind of, figure it out. You can be your own painting of the backyard and build it how you want. But the downside of that is that's tons and tons of money and really expensive. I think the average backyard can go from like 5 to 10 all the way to 30 to 50 or more. Sky's the limit in terms of premium materials that you want to use. So there's that. If you do have a backyard for normal size home, they're usually really tiny, where a lot of homes you can get affordably on the East Coast have huge, massive backyards with privacies. So like the small backyard was a bummer, and then no basements. Like, the whole Vegas Valley is built on very, very hard bedrock, and it's just very difficult and expensive to dig into the ground, even though having basements in Vegas is possible, but you have to pay for it. So our house is 2 floors. It's just a true 2 floors. You have ground floor and another floor on top. Whereas if we bought a house in the East Coast, we would absolutely probably have a ground floor, a second floor, and then a basement, which I love. I've always loved basements growing up. It's like your fun room. It's like your den. It's like your lounge, but we don't have that. And we hardly even have a backyard. So I'm like, what the heck is this? And so that's something that was pretty interesting for me kind of going through as a home buyer here in Vegas. A couple more things. Vegas also has pretty bad allergies. So, my wife and I developed really bad allergies in DC. That's kind of what it's known for in the summertime, especially spring and summer when it gets really, really humid. So we thought we'd get a little bit more of a relief coming to Vegas. It ultimately is a little bit better, but in springtime, the way that Vegas is kind of created as a valley, a lot of the pollen and dust goes up, but gets trapped in the air on top of the city. And so there is surprisingly a lot of allergies here. And if you don't have allergies, there's a high chance you might be able to develop some sort of allergy, which was not a good thing to kind of, experience and learn about here in Vegas. We thought it was more of a dry climate, no allergies would be great, but we have to continue to take Allegra and all these over-the-counter medications to help us with allergies. Who would have thought in the middle of the desert? A couple more things. Obviously, being a desert, I now have come to really love and desire like water and greens. Aside from Mount Charleston, you don't really have that there. And in terms of water, you have like Lake Mead, but it's not really a place that you kind of want to swim in. I really miss cleaner lakes. I really miss like the ocean. And so during the first year, we've gone a lot to like Los Angeles and California to kind of go to the beaches there. But if I were to redo it again, yeah, in terms of lifestyle, I really miss being close and closer to a body of water. If I can bike to it, a short drive, or maybe even walk to it, that would just be amazing. I can't live without water, and whether it's lake or ocean, I'm kind of still looking for that perfect city where I have that. But if you're looking for greens and water and that's what you need, you should not be coming to Vegas at all. Even though we technically do have a lake, and even though we're 4 hours away from California, but that's still 4 hours too long. Last but not least, one thing I've also noticed just by doing it is if you are planning to have a car here in Vegas or drive, the insurance premiums are some of the highest in the entire country because of the accidents that happen year round. Insurance companies just raise the premiums. And unfortunately, if you Google it, Nevada and Vegas is pretty up there. And that's not great. Having a car is not cheap, especially if you have to pay for gas or electricity. And the last thing you want to do is pay a jacked up insurance price, but that's one of the costs that you have to just be okay with living in Vegas. So guys, I hope you liked this video. I know it's a little bit random, but it's more personal. And it's one of the big recent changes I've done personally in my life and just want to talk about it. But if you want to see more Vegas content, comment down below. We'd love to make more of those. But otherwise, appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one.